Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Hébert. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Greater New Orleans, and I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about the elephant in the room. Is New Orleans the worst market for real estate in the entire country? So we're going to dive into that today, but we're also going to talk about how you can overcome those challenges as a seller. How can you stand out against the market? How can we price correctly? What does this market even look like right now? And what things can you do that may not cost a lot, but can have really high returns when it comes time to list your home in today's market? So as we've all heard and seen in the news, that New Orleans has been deemed the worst real estate market in America. It's kind of us versus Florida for a race to the bottom at this point, but it's a race that nobody really wants to win. So today we're going to take a look at that. The way that this is being done is this is a live YouTube premiere, so I will be available in the comments. So please feel free to post your questions in the comments during the premiere. I will be answering those there along with my wonderful licensed assistant, Liz Wallace. So we'll be available to answer your comments there. I've also put my cell phone number below in the description. So if you don't want to ask your questions in a public forum, please feel free to text me. The number is 504-617-5184. Telethon style. I am sitting here at the phone ready to answer your questions. So with all of that being said, I think it's time for us to jump in. All right, so let's start with the numbers. Where's the market right now? What's the true data? What's going on here? The good news for you, I've gathered all the data, I've got it right here, and we're gonna take a look and see what does all of this mean, and then we're gonna wrap up this section with how did we get here? So let's start with the numbers. In New Orleans, as we know, homes are taking longer to sell. They're starting to creep over 80 days on average on market. So if you're thinking about moving soon, let's take that into consideration with when you might go to list your property. You may, if you have a big move coming up, whether it's out of state or even here locally, you may want to start that conversation a little bit earlier. Since they are taking, close to 3 months to get sold on the market, might not be a bad idea to get started a little bit sooner than you may have originally. They're really cautious right now. They are seeing that the rates are higher. With an average days on market over 80 days, that also means that right now we're seeing almost 9 months of inventory on the market. Now, what does 9 months of inventory on the market necessarily mean? That metric is something that says that if there are no more listings, new listings hitting the market, that based on the current amount of buyer demand, it would take 9 months for every buyer to acquire the homes on the market currently. So that's quite a lot of inventory, usually around that 5.5 to 6 months of inventory is where we see the pendulum sort of swing over to a buyer's market. So now in the Greater New Orleans area, I would say that we are pretty comfortably in a buyer's market. However, as I tell all of my clients, a well-priced house in good condition and a good location will always sell quickly. Now that being said, New Orleans is a large market in terms of geography. However, New Orleans is made up of a lot of micro markets. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but instead of thinking of these large kind of swaths of suburbia that you may find in certain areas of the country, New Orleans has very, very small markets that make up the Greater New Orleans market. So what's working in the Bywater or data that you have for the Bywater or the Marigny, that may drastically differ from what's going on in Lakeview or Uptown or Kenner or Metairie or even on the North Shore. We're seeing different trends happening across the board within these micro markets. So based on the micro market that your home is located in, we're going to take a little bit of a closer look at how we price based on these micro markets later. Now, how did we get here? Who knows, around 2020 going into 2021, interest rates hit a historic low. They will never be that low again. Those rates, and I've got the data right here for us, those rates bottomed out at 2.65. And what happened in that time period is not only were people buying new houses at this extraordinarily low rate, but also people were refinancing at this low rate. So you have a number of people who are comfortably in their homes or during COVID, they may have overpaid for their home to get into it because there was so much competition with homes being more affordable in terms of interest rate than ever before. They were able to get in at those lower interest rates. Now let's flash forward. That was around January 7th of 2021. Now let's carry this trend forward. Rates peaked around October 26th of 2023, where they topped out on average of 7.79. And now we're seeing a kind of a coasting around 6.72. There are potentially 2 rate cuts, though not expected to be dramatic, but 2 federal rate cuts happening by the end of this year. Projections have things hovering through 2026 around the mid 5s to low 6s. That's where people are targeting over the next year for us to sit. Now, that's what most markets in America have faced. When I have talked to colleagues in other markets across the country, the one thing that they're running into is low inventory. Everybody is locked in at these lower rates, and they don't want to move, or maybe they can't afford to move right now. If they listed their house, they could certainly sell it. But if they needed to turn around and buy something else, they're being priced out of their budget. So that is not the problem that we have here. Now, as other areas of the country may be experiencing low inventory, as we just mentioned, New Orleans has a ton of inventory. And now why is that happening? Well, we can blame the other dirty I word, and that's insurance. At the same time we were starting to enjoy the fruits of historically low interest rates, Hurricane Ida happened. That caused many insurance companies to either close, go bankrupt, or exit our market entirely. So insurance costs have skyrocketed dramatically. Now let's think about that COVID era buyer. They were able to afford, or may have even overpaid for a new home. They were comfortable with that monthly note. Now let's say that their monthly note was $1,500. They were comfortable with that. They thought that they could sit there and ride that note for a very long time. Well, as we saw, many people's insurance doubled, tripled, and some even quadrupled after the period where they purchased their home. That can take their monthly payment from $1,500 to $2,000 to $2,500 a month, or even more. So now they need to sell. Their home is no longer affordable. They need to sell. They could find something else to potentially purchase, but they have to sell their home first. So that's how we ended up here in this unique predicament. We've got high interest rates, and then something that is a special gift just for us is that we have high insurance rates as well. So yes, it is harder to sell, but it's not impossible. We just have to approach it a little bit differently, and you need context, precision, and we need to have a plan for your home that attracts the most amount of buyers and gets you the best price for your home. Now let's talk about why many homes fail or linger on the market or just aren't getting the outcome that the sellers expect. And there are 3 main reasons for this. Number 1 being pricing based on emotion instead of the market. Number 2 would be a subpar presentation. And then number 3 would be agents just listing homes and not actually leading the charge in terms of strategy and adaptability within the market. Now that we have those 3, let's break it down and talk about what each one means. And then after that, we're gonna move on to how to price with confidence and then what is actually getting homes sold in today's market. The first one is pricing based on emotion rather than the market. Sellers are often starting with a number that they want to get, or they know how much that they owe on the home. The problem with that is that's not necessarily what buyers are willing to pay. The value of any good is only what someone is willing to pay for it. Now I know you have a wonderful home, you've put a lot of love into it, I know that feeling, and you see the value in it. Well, we're facing a lot of competition right now. So when we get into the section about pricing the home based on the current market, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But the buyers are going to be comparing your home against your competition. That's going to be within your neighborhood, within your location. They could say, hey, maybe I can go 5 minutes outside of this area and get a little bit more for a home. And if you're not priced right, they're gonna scroll right past your home. Now, the worst sin in home pricing is called chasing the market. So sometimes I'll have conversations with sellers, and it happens quite a lot, where they say, Let's go at the market at say $400,000. Let's just see what we can get. The moment that you go to market is the biggest momentum and the highest traffic you're ever gonna see on your listings presence online and in person. So what that means is when I say chasing the market, if you want to throw spaghetti at the wall and go for the $400,000, you can certainly do that. And if the comparable home sales are saying maybe $350,000, you can do that, but what we see is these incremental price adjustments downward over time that look like you're just chasing the market to find where that buyer is located. So what that means is if you look in the price history of a house and you see 400, 2 weeks later, 395, 2 weeks later, 390. It shows that it makes it look as if a seller is desperate to sell. Not so much that you're slashing the price, but that you're just trying to fish in the pond until you get a bite. So we don't want to price it like that. We want to price it really expertly, really strategically, and based on all of the data that we have, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Now, subpar presentation. This is a personal pet peeve of mine, is iPhone photography. You should never have iPhone photography in your listings, or having photos that are unflattering of your property, that don't demonstrate all of the fabulous aspects of your property, or even worse, misrepresent your property. I'm seeing that a lot with the prevalence of AI in the market. I've seen some agents that are posting homes that have completely redesigned exteriors at a certain price point that is not the house that's being shown, and you're just gonna disappoint buyers. So just being honest about the house, and I cannot wait to talk about that in a little bit, about the transparency that is getting homes sold today. Don't rely on an iPhone. If an agent says that they are gonna come in and take pictures with an iPhone, run. I do not recommend that. Everybody is online now, and your digital presence is more important than ever. The other is things like forgettable listing descriptions. How many times have you seen this charming 3-bed, 2-bath cottage is located on a corner lot in a cul-de-sac and how nice, or whatever it is? We see that all the time. That doesn't tell the story of your house. Speaking of AI, a lot of agents will just take the features of your home, throw it into AI, and then it generates some type of description that may or may not be accurate about your home, but we want it to be truly custom. You want to tell a story with that, and I'm excited to talk more about that in just a minute. And then agents who just list homes and don't lead with them. The market is ever changing. Buyers' tastes and buyers' demands are constantly changing, and even week by week, things are coming up. You want to be very aware of what your competition is doing in the market. Is there a new home that's on the market? Has a home taken a dramatic price cut in your nearby market? You want an agent who is looking at these things and staying updated with this information. And it's not just the things within your micro market or in your neighborhood or even in Greater New Orleans. You want an agent who is looking at things that are going on in the broader scape of real estate in the United States. Where are interest rates going? What are rumored developments going on nearby? Is a film studio being developed, let's say, on the West Bank? Where's the new Trader Joe's going? There are so many different things that you want your agent to be aware of so that you can tweak and adjust your strategy as your home is on the market so that it keeps it fresh, it keeps eyeballs on your home, and it positions your home in the very best way for when the right buyer comes along to capture their attention and get your home under contract and sold faster for a higher dollar. Now let's talk about price. This is where most sellers get stuck. But pricing a home is not a wild guess. We're not pulling numbers out of the sky or, like I said earlier, throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's a strategic decision based on 4 key things. That's going to be past sales in the last 6 months within your immediate market, active competition, market momentum, and buyer psychology. So of course it's a little bit of home pricing 101, but let's break that down a little bit. Past sales in the last 6 months, I know it can be very tempting when you're on Zillow, one, to look at this estimate, which you and I both know that just does not work in our market, but to also look at, hey, well, my neighbor's house sold for $200,000 more than I was planning to list my house. It has to be good to go. Well, we need to break that down and take a look at what other homes influence the pricing of your home, what else has sold in the past 6 months, and then we'll break it down even further into what are those different amenities, finishes, lot features, lot sizes. We're going to look at everything about those homes to make sure that we're pulling comparable home sales within the last 6 months. And then we're also going to take a look at the active competition. You love thy neighbor, but you may also be in competition with your neighbor to sell your home. So let's look at the competition around you. Are there many homes on the market? Are those homes selling quickly, or are they going under contract? How are they pricing them? Have they had recent improvements, renovation? Are they in the same flood zone as you? That's even something that is a huge determining factor for pricing right now. And believe it or not, your next door neighbor may be in one flood zone and you may be in a different flood zone altogether. So as a responsible real estate agent, we're going to take a look at all of that data that's available to us. We're going to see what the trends are, see where the insurance lines are. We're going to take a look at all of this to make sure that we're pulling good numbers, good accurate numbers, and numbers that will reflect exactly what we plan to do with your home. And then market momentum. Are you seeing a decline in your neighborhood's prices? Some neighborhoods are going to be increasing right now, believe it or not. I know that this sounds a little sad or a little doomsday-ish, but a lot of neighborhoods are increasing in price. Overall, we are seeing a 1.6% year-over-year price increase in the United States. So that can be true too for certain markets in Southeast Louisiana. We're also going to see what new construction is going on. Are there positive changes coming into the market? We mentioned Trader Joe's earlier. Trader Joe's, UMC, all of these things have changed that 2-lane corridor dramatically. So as these improvements happen, even though we may be seeing a declining or stabilizing housing market here in New Orleans, there are certain pockets that may see dramatic increases, and we want to make sure that we capture that in the pricing. And then lastly is buyer psychology. Now, we're not selling your home at Walmart, so buyer psychology is really important here. We're not going to list your house at, say, $399.99. We're going to list your home in intervals that make sense. When people are shopping online, they are looking at up to $400,000, let's say. So we wouldn't be pricing your home at $405,000 just to see if we could get that extra $5,000. Because what can happen is if you're missing out on these key brackets, which typically take place every $50,000 or every $5,000, there's a rule of fives there. If you price it just over, say for instance, pricing at $405,000, you could be losing up to 50% of your buyer pool, even if you know that you would accept $400,000 on your home. You're losing that when people are searching for homes. They got pre-approved up to $400,000. That's where they're comfortable with their monthly note. If you price at $405,000, they're just never gonna see your home. It could be the perfect home for them. They could know very well that they could negotiate it into $400,000 or another number that's comfortable to them. But just because of the psychology of a buyer and the way that online searches work, if you miss out on those key points, maybe every $25,000, every $10,000, every $5,000, if you hit over those price jumps, those key price points like $400,000, you could be missing out on a lot of buyers. And with this hyperlocal pricing strategy, I use a tool called Cloud CMA. It's a super handy, immersive, and interactive tool that puts together all of this data that I've gone through and prepared and pulled the comparable home sales, other information about the home, even prepared a seller net sheet so that you can see what your net proceeds would be. This really interesting tool allows us to sit down together either in person or over a Zoom call or a Google Meet, and it allows us to go through a comprehensive overview of your home's positioning in the market. It also will highlight what homes have expired and didn't sell. We can identify what problems maybe they had with that listing that didn't get them the success that they wanted. This will also go over everything from trends in the micro market that you're located in. And it'll also show us what current listings and sales are going on in your neighborhood. And the nice thing about it being interactive is that it'll allow you to see each individual listing that we're going to be referring to. So many CMAs or comparable market analyses, those are stagnant PDF files that just show either a few of the pictures, a couple of the pictures. They even have a one-line CMA that just shows you the street address and some of the data. But what this Cloud CMA allows us to do is to take an in-depth dive into the market statistics. We can see the photos from each home. We can see a hyper detailed view of each home that we're looking at, as well as your home and how it relates to these others on the market. So it's a really, really handy tool. We're going to talk a little bit more about the things that I like to do with my seller clients to ensure that they have successful sales. So I'm really excited to dive into that. But I have to share that it's a very, very interesting tool. If you want to have an example of it, please let me know. I'd be happy to share with you what I've done for other seller clients that have got them top dollar in the shortest amount of time possible using Cloud CMA. It's really cool. It's really interactive. You don't have to be super tech savvy to explore the Cloud CMA. That's on me to prepare, but I would love to share that with you. So now that we've talked about pricing and how, a 1,500 square foot home and the Bywater may be a little bit different than a 1,500 square foot home in Gentilly or Metairie, or even how condos differ. Condos in Metairie versus the French Quarter versus the CBD. Those could all be completely different. And so that's when we're going to take a look at that hyperlocal focus. Now that we've talked about hyperlocal pricing, let's talk about what actually gets homes sold in today's market. In today's market, I have 3 key pillars that get my clients' homes sold faster and for the best dollar. Number 1, pricing. We just talked about pricing and the importance of pricing a home right when you first go to market. 2 is going to be presentation. How do we get your home in front of buyers, and how does it look when we get it in front of buyers? And then 3rd is probably the most important, and that is transparency. How are we going to convey everything about your home in the best light, but also leave nothing up to question? So though we've already talked about pricing, let's move on to presentation. I firmly believe in having editorial style photography for every home. Every single agent is going to offer, or at least should offer, professional real estate photography. They'll post it on the MLS. That feeds out to Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, Redfin, all those different websites. It will filter out there from the MLS. That's the multiple listing service, or kind of the real estate backend where we input all of our data and do our updates in there. So they'll offer that. They may offer open houses, and all of that's well and good. We talked earlier about no iPhone photography. That is an absolute pet peeve of mine, but I still see it every single day. But presentation is so important. You're proud of your home, and we want it to be showcased in the absolute best light possible. So within presentation, there are a couple different things that we're discussing when we talk about presentation. Of course, photography, and that is one of the most important. That is the first impression that people have of your home before they get into the nitty-gritty with it. And with that, we like to use editorial style photography. Think about flipping through all of your favorite home and lifestyle magazines. These homes are beautiful. They're Instagram worthy. And it's not just because they are the largest home or the most elaborate home. You can capture beautiful vignettes in editorial style photography of any home. It can be the most standard kind of 3-bed, 2-bath ranch home on the West Bank, or it can be an incredibly opulent uptown mansion. They can still achieve the editorial style photography. I attend in person to work alongside our photographer to make sure that the vision is captured in that way. But also that gives us images that we can use in many different ways. Of course, it'll be online in the listings that they may come across on Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com. But we also use those to create a compelling story of your favorite moments in the home. I love to do a seller intake where I ask you questions about what things have you absolutely loved about the home. What things might you have changed about the home? And all of that helps me get to know you and your home a little bit better. That really empowers me to create these moments or vignettes with this editorial style photography of our listing descriptions that say, enjoy your morning coffee in this location. Or when we're showing the home in person, we can say, oh, the homeowners, they absolutely loved this section of the backyard. It was their most relaxing spot. It has a crepe myrtle tree. This is a moment that we want to capture, because when people are looking at homes online, they want to be able to picture themselves there. So presenting your home and all of the little moments or vignettes within the home with high-end luxury real estate photography at every price point of home and capturing that in an editorial sense is really important. People are buying online before they buy in person. I tell all of my buyer clients, if they, every time that they fall in love with the first house that they see, which is more common nowadays than you might think, they tell me in turn, well, I don't want to buy the first house that I saw. The exact question I ask them every single time is, how many homes have you looked at online? And every single time they say, oh, hundreds. I've looked at every house on the market. And I'm like, then you viewed that many homes. So the way that we go about it is knowing that buyer psychology, knowing how people operate when they are looking at these images. So with those buyers who have seen 100 homes online before they've even stepped foot in the first home in real life, we want to make sure that a home is captured just like that you can capture their attention through photography and presentation that is a little bit outside of the ordinary. Now, it's not some bizarre photography, but it's just very high-end, and it's focused on these vignettes and these little moments that showcase your favorite features of the home and what might be the favorite features of a future homeowner of yours. We also use 3D virtual tour technology, and what that allows us to do is it enables buyers to walk through a home to see all areas of the home online just by clicking through the website to be able to see the home before they get there. Something that my seller clients have really grown to appreciate is it's okay that the house is not okay for every buyer. It's not going to be the right fit for every single buyer. But with these 3D tours and this in-depth luxury photography, sometimes it's just as helpful for you as a seller to know when your home is not for a certain buyer. And that really helps us with our showings. If you're still occupying the home, then it can be a lot to ask you and your family and even your pets to step out during showings and open houses. This prevents us from having a ton of looky-loos. So using that 3D technology, we're able to get it in front of more people. Particularly out-of-town buyers love the 3D tours because you really get an immersive sense of what the home is like and you can buy comfortably from a distance. But also make sure that we're not bothering you too much, that we're able to respect your space and your peace and get the right people in your house at the right time. I also utilize walkthrough videos for all of my listings. Now, this is something that you may see on social media if you follow any real estate agents. They have these kind of sizzle reels that are the highlights of the home. There's always a really, dolled up realtor walking into a home and saying, welcome to X address. And, they're kind of showcasing everything as they walk through. Well, this is only the highlights. What I do is something called a virtual open house, and it is a full walkthrough video. But instead of just sharing a walkthrough video, this is another opportunity for us to be able to share your story and your home story. What are the things that we want to call out and highlight? So we'll record a full walkthrough video of the home, and then I'll provide a voiceover or a picture-in-picture that enables me to host this virtual open house at all times and walk people through your home to call out those key features, make things really pop that we may not be able to in our limited listing descriptions, that we may not be able to highlight there. It's another way that we're bringing the humanity and kind of the emotion to it and be able to control the narrative around your home. These are the best things. These are the most exciting features about the home. And this is how we're going to let you fall in love with the home as a home buyer. Now that we've covered presentation, let's talk about probably the most important in today's market. And that's going to be transparency. There's this word that is going around that I kind of appreciate, and it's called radical transparency within real estate. And it has been incredibly empowering for my home seller clients. And what that means is that we are going to gather all of the information together about your home. We're going to go through every single improvement you've made in your home. If you have receipts for improvements, if you have an HVAC servicing history, anything about the home, and that even includes things that may not be perfect about the home. Now, no home is perfect, but buyers are nervous. Buyers are anxious, they're skittish, they're getting cold feet more than ever. Just this week, I read that more home contracts are falling out than ever before, that they're canceling, that buyers are backing out at a rate of 15.9% of contracts falling through. And we want to prevent that from happening. Now, this may seem counterintuitive if you're not commonly working in the business, and that's okay. But what we've found is that the more upfront we are with your home, and now granted, you should always be disclosing, and legally are required to, disclose anything that you know is a material defect with the home. That could be broken pipes, leaks, damage, anything like that. We have property disclosures for that. But being very upfront about it, hey, this is in an AE flood zone. We know that. AE flood zone is not necessarily the best, and it can come with some of the higher premiums, but we can find other ways to work around that. Hey, it's in an AE flood zone, but we will pay for your first year of flood insurance as part of the deal. We're addressing it head on, offering an incentive, and making sure that that buyer doesn't run into a surprise later. Is holding their pocketbook closely right now, and they're keeping it tightly locked up. So we want to make sure that buyers feel comfortable with the home, that they don't feel like a seller is ever hiding anything. They will conduct their own inspections, but you don't want any dramatic surprises coming out of those inspections. Now, if you are really nervous about anything with your home, or if you haven't taken a look under the hood in quite some time or many years, we can always do a pre-listing inspection. I have found that to be really helpful as well. That allows us to price it more accurately and also provide that information to any prospective buyers and say, hey, your offer should take this into consideration, whatever is on this inspection report, so that there are no surprises down the road when they're in their due diligence period and conducting inspection. I cannot tell you how successful this sort of radical transparency has been. I have not had any contracts canceled due to the home, anything other than I've had one fallout due to a buyer illness. I have not had any contracts fall through because of surprises. Even insurance, condition, anything like that, or even appraisals. I've not had anything fall out of contract thus far by utilizing this concept of radical transparency. It's been very upfront, it's been very honest, and it's led to extremely positive transactions. So I cannot recommend that highly enough. So between pricing, presentation, and transparency, that's what's actually getting homes sold on this market. Price your home correctly, make sure it stands out amongst the pack, and that we're completely transparent so that there are no surprises down the road and that the buyers feel comfortable moving forward with your home. All right, now on to a positive note. Let's talk about success stories. I want to wrap this up with hope because I know everything that you might be reading online or even some of what we talked about today may make it feel like all hope is lost. But there is hope, and there are success stories. I've been so excited and happy to work with a number of different sellers, especially here as of late, who've been able to find success working with us using the exact strategies that we've talked about today in this video. And these 3 stories are all homeowners who had previously listed their homes with other agents, didn't find the success that they had desired, and then brought me in. We revamped it, followed the exact same strategies that I shared with you today, and we were able to successfully get their home sold. So the first one, it was a 3-bed, 2-bath home in Marrero that my client had wonderfully renovated, but the previous listing was cell phone photography, as we've talked about. That is the cardinal sin of real estate, is cell phone photography. But also, they had just not put the bow on it. The photography obviously was not professional. They had not taken down the construction paper off of the windows. They had mismatched light bulbs in the bathroom vanities. There are a number of these things that as we walked through, I was able to, for less than $100, help my client reposition and remarket their home. So it was $100 in light bulbs. We took down the paper off of the windows. I brought in my go-to photographer for our media day, in which we took those editorial style photos of this just absolutely adorable home. We were able to call out the renovation of the home, the lot of the home, and replace all those bathroom light bulbs. So doing all of this, following our go-to-market strategy, pricing the home correctly, we were able to get the home under contract in only 9 days. It had sat on the market for over 3 months with no showings. And then once we utilized this strategy, we were able to get the home under contract and sold to those buyers in only 9 days. And the next one I want to share with you is a family that I am still very, very close to today, but they wanted to move into their dream new construction home in Bellchase. They were listing their home in New Orleans on the West Bank. They had previously had their home listed for over a year with the previous agent that they had. The pictures were okay. They were professional photos, but there weren't many of them. It was in an area that had an ex-flood zone, but the rates were still very high. And there was a 5.5-inch differential in the foundation. So as part of that transparency, what I told them, and it's in an area of town that people know had settled over time and by and large was going where it was going to go in terms of settling, I said, let's lead with that. Instead of wasting your time, let's lead with, hey, this is a fabulous home. Let's touch up the balcony, which is the key feature of this home. Was an absolutely gorgeous entire front length balcony of this home. Let's clean up the balcony, repaint it, and lead with, there's a 5.5-inch differential, but let me tell you why you're gonna love this home. So we were able to remarket it with the strategies that I mentioned before. We led with transparency and highlighted the key moments of the home like the balcony, and we were able to get them under contract in 2 weeks. They were able to get back under contract on the house that they thought they missed out on, the new construction in Bellchase. We were able to get them into that home as well. So we sold their current home and got them into their new one. And lastly, this is the cutest house ever that was just not showcased in any way that it deserved prior. But this was the cutest Creole cottage over in the Treme kind of 7th Ward area of New Orleans, where it had sat on the market for 2 years with 2 different agents, and it had never moved. It had never received an offer. And what we did is I came in and I did a review of their previous listings, let them know that the way that the photos are laid out, again, professional photos, but there weren't many of them. It just left so many questions on the table when you were viewing the home online. What room leads into what room? What is the flow of this home? What are the special features of it? We were able to utilize the strategies that we talked about today with the 3D tour, with the walkthrough, to really showcase all the key features, the build outs that they did that were custom with the closets and the laundry room, converting a mud room into a beautiful laundry room. And then the other thing that was kind of shocking about this one that could have huge implications for the valuation of the house, I discovered when we were doing our deep dive through the Cloud CMA that I mentioned earlier, I noticed that the previous agents had only had the house listed on a 30 by 100 foot lot. However, I noticed that there is no way that the width of the house, which was probably 30 feet, and it also had a driveway and a garage next to it, there's no way that was only 30 feet. So after discovering this, I went into the tax assessor's records and discovered that the home actually is on 2 lots of record. So it was 45 feet wide over these 2 lots that transfer together by 100 feet deep. That could have dramatically thrown off the appraisal had they gotten it under contract. Could have had some really huge implications, but it's also a massive marketing feature. In that area, a 45 by 100 foot lot is largely unheard of, especially with gated driveway parking and a garage. So with that in mind, we were able to go to market, price it strategically, and get it under contract and get it sold. So those are the types of things that we love to do. I frequently work with and specialize in sellers who have expired listings that did not work out before. We're able to come in with a fresh perspective, do a bit of a diagnostic on their past listings, and then bring it to market successfully. But then also using those strategies from start to finish for new home seller clients who haven't been on the market yet before. We make sure that you don't end up in a situation where it sits on the market and then we don't get what we wanted out of it in the long run. So now what? What are the next steps? We've talked all about where is the market right now. We've talked about what the challenges are in the market and how we can overcome all of those challenges. Well, now I would love to have the opportunity to connect with you over on richardhebertrealtor.com. I have a ton of free resources, a lot of in-depth blog posts. We're going to be creating more videos and sharing more content in this way. All of these resources will always be free, whether you're working with myself or any other agent. One, of course, I wish you all of the very best and all of the great success in listing your home. Would love to be part of your journey there, but those resources are always going to be free. We have an expired listing guide specifically dedicated to homeowners who maybe have not seen the success that they wanted to before with their home listing. We also have a free seller guide. And please schedule a strategy call with me. Those are always free. You can either call or text me or reach out to me through my website, richardhebertrealtor.com. You can book a consultation there. It has a real-time calendar so that you can just pick your time, and we can either have a phone call, we can have a video meeting, or we can always meet in person. I love meeting in person. Let's go grab a coffee or a cocktail. And then also you can send me a text. We've been live in the comments this evening with the premiere of this. This is going to stay on YouTube, so feel free to access it whenever you'd like. I'll make sure that if you attended today that I get the link over to you so that you can continue to revisit it. But call or text me anytime. My personal cell phone number is 504-617-5184. If you just have any questions, if you want to bounce some ideas off of us, we want to be available to you as a resource. We want to make sure that no one ever feels overwhelmed by the market or the process. You just need the right plan to get in alignment, to get going, and we would love to be part of your journey and strategizing that plan and making sure you feel informed and empowered every step of the way. I cannot thank you enough for joining us. I'm excited to be doing more of these. It really means a lot that you're here and staying informed on the market. As always, we are here to support you in your journey. So once again, thank you so much. And if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out.